Ladies and gents, the ultimate Windows XP! So yeah, as the title suggests, guys, this is like the ultimate best supporting Windows XP and Vista build. I'm really excited for this. I've been waiting years for this. I've been getting into building this whole setup for a few years now, but I think this thing is just going to make it all possible. So down in the description, you can jump to a specific section, but I'm just going to rant for a quick, like, why am I doing this? Why is it so near and dear important to me? Honestly, it's these two things. It's the PhysX card and the Creative X-Fi. With the EAX support, I think that kind of motivated me to do like this, like more importantly, because like I was born in 94, so I grew up with XP, so that's all near and dear to me. But like, I think these two kind of like really pushed it forward. I remember like demoing the Halo 1 game on Windows, and it required like the EAX hardware acceleration. That just kind of didn't require, but like that sparked my interest. Oh, there's an add-on card for like another accelerator or whatever, and I was just like, what is going on here? And it's just crazy because it's like, I've wanted to build for a PC for like years, but I was a kid, couldn't afford it, and I remember like Christmas and birthdays, I would just reserve, ask parents for like a few parts here and there. And I think my first build was like a crappy Enforce AMD build, and it was terrible. But then this was like my second build, but like, yeah. So the story behind the PhysX card, it's a really funny story. So, back 2006, 07, I was obsessed with that Alienware case and the XPS 700, and I would go through those the system configurator build on like their websites. And I remember you could literally select one of the sound cards and the PhysX card. And I was like, wait a second, what is this thing? And I remember going through all the, YouTube back in the day and seeing that card. I was like, wait, what? And one of the games that this was really meant for was the Ghost Recon Advanced Warfighter 2. Now, my dad and I are obsessed with that game on the 360, so I was like, damn, okay, this is another cool little feature set. You can add cool little, environmental stuff. So I was, all right, that's cool. But, this, I guess, could be any operating system. More so, it was a sound card that was more important because in 2006, when Windows Vista came out, EAX was basically like not compatible anymore, and they made it like you could have a software tweak to make it still work with the environmental audio stuff. But to me, I really like the idea of offloading stuff to a card like that. So I went all out on this card and had the breakout box so you could change the game mode right there in the front. So yeah. So basically, I'm building this whole thing primarily around Windows XP support. So the latest NVIDIA graphics to support XP is the GTX 700 series. So I did get two 780 Ti's to SLI with water blocks like off of eBay a few years ago. But then I kind of stumbled upon this case. I was like, there's no way I can put a big ass radiator in this thing. You'll see why in a second. But so I said, screw it. I'm probably just going to go air cooled. And I saw this GTX 780. I might get a second one. I'm going to see how it's performing on its own. But because I know also SLI is like wonky with these cards, like no real advantage. The motherboard, like I said, this was like my first official, like really good board. And I had this thing for like 10 years before I switched to a Ryzen, recently switched to a Ryzen 5950X. But yeah, I was debating, what do I do with this thing? It's not really meant to, no point to make it a server because, well, this is better suited for other things, and power wattage doesn't make it sense to use as a server. So screw it. I said, let's just go out with this. And, other oddities, we've got a disk drive there. And this is for EAX, so I can get the temperature monitoring and the fan control, that kind of stuff. Making the best of this era. Yeah, I mean, what else? I've got so this SD, I know people say, oh, XP is not going to really do well on a SSD, but I said, I'll find a way. I want it to boot up nice and fast, so I'm going to dual boot this with Vista and XP. This 1 terabyte black drive is actually from back in the day, so, I figured, why not do it? And this is the 1000 watt, I think it's a Kingwin laser power supply, so this can handle 2 of these cards, so I figured why not go with that. These things light up, which won't be seen, but whatever. I wasn't sure of the case. This was sort of like, what am I going to do? I'm going to put this in storage and wait till I find a case I like. And I started seeing these things like show up more on YouTube. I was like, all right, I think this is it. I think if I can get my hands on this thing, it's kind of weird because there's no side panel on this case. But, you know, to be honest, this wasn't really something that I mean to do a side panel. I don't know. I don't like the red look. I like more the green look. And funny enough, this case actually came with a 790i Ultra motherboard like this. But it boots, but it'll turn on, but it doesn't boot. So I got this years ago too, to hopefully make a dream build out of this thing. So I'm more excited for this. This is like my childhood dream PC after watching those YouTube videos. So I thought maybe I can put that in there and just build a system for the era. But as it turns out, I was asking online, seeing what people suggested. I was saying there's this forum website that people use to talk about retro hardware, and everyone kept telling me that these boards, as great as they were very problematic, I guess, with you know, the capacitor issue of the 2000s, and also other issues. I mean, the one that's in there is broken, so I figured everyone said go with this one. So yeah, I'm really excited. It's an i7-950, so I don't see the need to get a 6-core because it's Windows XP. And it has 12 gigs of RAM. Again, useless for XP because I'm going to do 32-bit for better support, but I figured it's already in there, so, you know, can't hurt. Better compatibility for games. So yeah, I mean, I got this thing from like clearance because it was, I guess, from a repair or whatever, refurbished. Funny enough, the motherboard was designed for like 3-way SLI plus PhysX. Again, yes, I could use the PhysX card, but I want to keep it old school as much as possible and use that card for certain games, because I guess there's a compatibility issue with really old games. But yeah, you can see, so the LEDs in the computer too is it's finicky. Some of the lights work and they don't. You change them by adjusting these dip switches. This will still work, it just takes Molex. So I could use this without connecting to the motherboard, and that's it. The LEDs are dim, so I was thinking of switching them out down the road, but for now, I can get this thing up and running and I can make Windows XP apps. I'm just not going to worry about it and just call it a day for now. But yeah, so let's get it. Okay, this doesn't close because of the fan there, so gonna have to order a 1156 or 1366 CPU cooler to fit in here. Now let's get to the fun part of installing everything. So I did have a disk drive, but I didn't have a blank disk to rip Windows onto. So I said, screw it, I'm just going to get a USB drive. I was using Ventoy, which is a really cool USB OS installer. It just kept blue screening to the point I didn't even look it up. It just was not compatible with XP, so I tried Rufus, and then it gave me a weird error that I had the wrong installed upgrade disk or whatever. And I mean, I don't even know how it's possible, but I just kind of stumbled upon Phil's Computer Lab. I'll link the video down below, but I forgot the name of the tool, but that let me install Windows XP and Vista perfectly fine. So that was done. And then let's talk about the graphics card. Oh my god. I'll get to the DisplayPort in a bit, but NVIDIA has all this bloatware of extra cool little software goodies it thinks it's cool for you to download and install. GeForce Experience requires .NET, which requires a download, which doesn't download, and I'll get to that why later on. But one of the things that installs by default is the NView Desktop Manager, and I don't know who even thought this was a great idea to even include it. It is buggy as hell. I've had this problem years ago. I just forgot it was a reason, and I didn't even think about unchecking it. What it is sort of like a multi-desktop monitor switcher, whatever. And what happens is when you boot, it's installed and everything, right? You boot into Windows, it just hangs. You got to Control-Delete and end the task in order to bring up your desktop. And I mean, yeah, I don't even want to bother with it. And then I had an issue with the sound card, the Creative Sound card, the onboard audio. The drivers were installed. They showed up in Device Manager, but none of it showed up in audio outputs for some reason, and I don't even know. I think it was to do with that stupid HD audio driver on the graphics card installer. So you know what? I just gave up and reinstalled Windows, and I only installed the graphics driver, and that's it. And bam, it worked. Now let me talk about DisplayPort, because I mean I have a ultra wide. I like to take advantage of it, and I didn't really think about this, but when the driver is installed, because it does work before the driver is installed, but for some reason NVIDIA just does not like the card with DisplayPort. I don't know why an XP. It works in Vista just fine. I looked up, it was like Vogons or whatever this website was, and explained everything perfectly. You had to get a specific NVIDIA driver that allowed you to make custom resolutions. You also had to get this active DisplayPort adapter. I'll link it down below, because basically Windows would just boot when the driver's installed. Windows XP boots with a black screen. Like everything else shows up. The loading screen loads fine, but just for some reason it just does not want to work with DisplayPort. And so my monitor is 3840 by like 1600, and with this adapter I can only see 2560 by 1440. Honestly, anything beyond that just looked really weird and fuzzy and ugly, so I decided, screw it. It just works. I mean, it's better than 1080p, so I'm not gonna complain. Now, I made a stupider impulse buy, and I bought a second GTX 780, thinking I can SLI it. First issue I had was one of the fans was making a rusting noise, so that needed a good cleaning with oil and all that kind of stuff. But the bigger issue, it just would not set up SLI and XP. It did it in Vista, which I also had installed, but just like it would show up in the control panel, just not XP. And honestly, NVIDIA really neutered the crap out of the XP support at this point, because it's 2013 and just when end of life was hitting. So I guess it is what it is. I'm just kind of annoyed, but yeah. But yeah, guys, I live my childhood dream. I dual booted Vista on this. I know people are going to hate on it, but I loved how Vista looked at the time. I was 12 years old when Vista came out, and it just was like eye-popping with everything. I've always wanted the EAX experience with the creative sound cards. I've always wanted one of the little PhysX cards to take advantage of the little cool little graphics and stuff, and I've always wanted to play these old games I just couldn't take advantage of as a kid. So yeah, I'm really, really excited. I want to get into like writing apps for these things too, and it's one of the things that like I wish I did as a kid was to get in coding when I was like 10 years old. But yeah, I'm living the dream now, I guess. The only issue now is just sourcing the old games, because I mean I had some of the discs, but I lost some of them, and then I don't know. I like the whole Steam experience where you can just click and launch a game anyway, but that's gonna get harder and harder to do, so I have to figure out how I can even do that, if they'll even still support EAX. So there's a lot of like frustrations. It really is like beating a dead horse, even with like the latest support OS, Opera in this case. It just, websites don't load. I don't know if it's a JavaScript issue or the SSL certificates, but yeah, I mean, it's just one after the other. I really hope this can get preserved more. I'm going to try my best to preserve it. Frames per second, it does still pretty good for just one graphics card. I was getting like 90 FPS on the Ghost Recon Advanced Warfighter 2 with PhysX, so everything maxed out at the resolution. Let me know if there's a game you guys want me to compare to. Anything else, suggestions, drop it down below. And even for software, I'm trying to get into like preserving the whole experience and stuff. So yeah, let me know.